Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for joining. This is Carlos Camacho, and our guest today is Paul Morris.
Good morning, afternoon, evening.
Yeah, let me quickly introduce Paul. Talking about the mainline ServiceNow certifications. Paul is a certified system administrator, certified application developer, a certified implementation specialist ITSM. He is a certified implementation specialist CSM, certified implementation specialist HR, certified implementation specialist discovery, certified implementation specialist service mapping, and on top of that, certified technical architect.
Yes, that's correct.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, and let me switch to screen sharing, and yeah, you can start whenever you want.
Yeah, awesome. So I usually have some sort of side ServiceNow project on the go, just to keep myself technical, because a lot of the time these days I'm more in like an architecture design or like providing guidance role and don't actually get to do technical things all the time anymore. So I like to do some technical things in my spare time just to keep my skills fresh and relevant. So myself personally, I don't get as much time as I used to, but I am a little bit of a gamer. So any gamer would probably be familiar with the program Steam, which is the world's most popular platform for gaming, essentially. This is where most of my games are purchased through the Steam store. So I've got 126 games through the Steam store. So this is what the Steam app looks like, and it shows you all the different games that you've got. So, like most things these days, there is API to integrate with Steam. So I thought it might be fun just to integrate with the Steam platform and, as a bit of a project, load all of my games into ServiceNow and build a bit of a unique ranking system around those games. So you can see here they've all got like all the different ratings for all the games. You can see there's like a little green number there, 96, 95, 95, 94. I wanted to come up with my own way to score and review games. So I will show you how I've done that. Just bear with me for a second. All right, so I'll just show you what I built in Steam. So this is just like a normal service portal where you've got your standard search capability. So I've loaded in all my ServiceNow games just using a REST API using Flow Designer and Integration Hub. So to see all my games, I can just navigate to my games, and I've got a list of all my games in here, and including some information like playtime in minutes. So I used to have, as I was saying, I used to have a lot more time to play games than I used to. So I've loaded in data like the playtime, and I've also, for a start, I've ranked them from most played to least played. So you can see at the top there, the game I've played the most, Age of Empires 2. That's always going to be, has been a favorite of mine as long as I can remember. And back when I was in university, I used to play Dota 2, which is one of the world's most popular esports. And then it just sort of continues, and this is sort of by playtime minutes descending. And you can just sort of scroll through the list, and you can see there's 7 pages of all the different games that I've got in my Steam library that are shown within ServiceNow. As you can see here, the first one there was Half-Life. That was the highest rated game in my library. So type in Half-Life, and then you can see all the Half-Life titles that I have and the various play times for those. Now, most of those are 0 because I played them before they were actually in the Steam platform itself, so it doesn't have the information for playtime and most played ranking for those ones. But it's all there, and you can go into one of the individual games and just see some further information about it, like the name, the release, the different user tags that have been given to that game, the description, website, and there you can see the playtime ranking there. And this is mostly just using out of the box widgets with a few little changes. But I wanted to, because the ServiceNow platform had a lot of things pre-built, I thought it would be a cool little platform to test my skills, to put all this information in there, and it was pretty quick to make everything display quite nicely. So putting in the games was only the start, really, of what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a kind of like a dual ranking system that I've dubbed at the moment Face Off. So I may as well just launch right into it. So I've got this rank my games option here. So I'm going to click on it, and it's going to find 2 of my games to rank against each other. So there's an algorithm behind the scenes that weighs up how much I've played a game, how much I've previously looked at a game, all these sorts of things, to give me 2 games to face off against each other. And all I have to decide from these 2 that it's come up with the algorithm is what's the best team-based Steam game. So it's given me here 2 of the most played, or 2 of my most played Steam games here. So we've got Dota 2 versus Counter-Strike 2. These are probably the two of the most popular team-based games in the world, and it's given me a little description. All I have to do is decide which one that I think is the best team-based Steam game. So this one's a pretty hard decision. Counter-Strike 2, very popular game. Dota 2, very popular game. They're both team-based games. It's almost impossible to say which one is the best team-based game. I would say Counter-Strike is very, probably worldwide, more popular than Dota 2. So I could say number 2 wins, which just refers to the game over here. So I'll click number 2 wins, and it's going to rate number 2 as being the best game. And then it's just going to serve me another game to rate off. So there we've got Left 4 Dead 2, which is a zombie shooter that I played a lot of when I was younger, against Counter-Strike 2, which is the best team-based game. Then I can say, let's just carry on and say number 2 wins. And it's just going to algorithmically keep serving me 2 games to face off against each other. So now it's gone back to showing Dota 2 versus Counter-Strike Source. So this time I'm going to say the game on the left is the better game. And it's just going to keep giving me more and more options. Now we've got Left 4 Dead 2. I'm going to say that's the better game. So I'm never ranking a game like something out of 100 or 10 or giving it 5 stars. And behind the scenes, it's coming up with its own algorithm to determine which games are actually the best in a leaderboard. So I'll just do a couple more. Dota 2, Counter-Strike. We'll go Counter-Strike. Keep going through. Okay, now I'll say Counter-Strike again.
This Counter-Strike was a huge success. Yeah.
Yes, everyone has played Counter-Strike pretty much. And Payday, so this is only showing games that I own on the Steam library. So it knows these are relevant to me. It knows how much I've played them. Dota 2 and Payday, I'm going to say Dota 2 is the better team-based game. And now I'll say Left 4 Dead 2. And it's going to keep going through. I'm going to say Dota 2 again. do this a couple times to make sure I've got some actual ratings in the system. Say Left 4 Dead 2 again. And it's never going to give me the same matchup twice. It's going to try and keep it fresh. So I'll pick Dota 2 again. And these buttons at the bottom are just regular UI actions that you would see in the classic user interface or in workspaces. I wanted to leverage as much out of the box as possible to sort of build up this prototype. I'll go Left 4 Dead again. Dota 2 again. Go Left 4 Dead 2 again. So as it goes through, it's going to show me games that I play sort of less and less. It starts off with the most relevant games and then sort of goes through lesser relevant games. Like I didn't play that much of Sven Co-op. So I've done quite a few ratings there. So what I'll do now in the search bar, I can go, so this was team-based. So just using Service Portal standard search with search sources, I can then view the ladder of the best team-based Steam game, which is going to give me a lot of rankings. So I've gone through and rated a couple of games. It's only seeded 2 games. So kind of like if you imagine it's like a tournament. This requires a game to be rated 4 times before it gets placed on the leaderboard, just to make sure it's had a few turns of being competed against other games before it's considered that it has a score that's accurate enough to put on the leaderboard. Tell me that there's still 63 games that are team-based that I haven't seeded yet, and I've seeded 3.1. Well, this is so globally of all the games I've got in my database, there's 63 games that haven't been seeded yet. 3.1% of them have been seeded, and there's 65 games in total that I have in my database that have the tag team-based Steam game. Now, these come from Steam. So example games, I'll search Dota 2, and if we look on the right hand side, once it finishes loading, store page maybe, yeah, popular user defined tags for this product. This is where I get the criteria to rate the games against each other. So this one is free to play, mobile, multiplayer, strategy, PvP. It doesn't show all of them in the GUI that Steam show you. They just show you the popular ones, but there's a whole other bunch that are behind the scenes, and one of those is team-based. But if I can go into here, Dota 2, I've got all the tags here in order. So you can see in Steam had free-to-play, mobile, multiplayer, strategy, but there's also esports, and then team-based is one of the most popular ones, but it just missed out on being displayed on the Steam page there. It goes all the way through to simulation, action RPG, things like that. So I can just go back to the leaderboard. So that will show me currently there's 2 games on the leaderboard rankings, and I rank them using the ELO system, which is a system that's used, for example, in tennis, if that's a sport that you follow. It's good for sort of 1v1 matching. It's also used in chess. It's probably most well known for chess. It's essentially like a numbering system that you face 2 things off against each other, and it works out the probability of who is most likely to win based on their current ELO score. And then the player that wins gets additional score based on the probability that they were going to win or lose. So if a player with a high ELO beats a player with a low ELO, there was a high probability that they were going to win, so they don't go up many points. Kind of like if a world number 1 in tennis, like if Novak Djokovic beats like someone that's like a 150th seeded player, his ELO doesn't go up much because it was very, very probable that he would win. But if someone in the hundreds beats a world number 1 player, their ranking goes up massively. And same with chess. So I've got some statistics as well as to how many of my games that I own that I've managed to get seeded into the ranking ladder. So I can see that's just 2 games that I own that you can see up there. And there's 12 games that I own that haven't been seeded and ranked into that ladder, 14 in total, with a completion rate of 14%. And this will show me all the other games that I have or haven't ranked that haven't been seeded yet. So I've got Counter-Strike Source there, Magicka, and these are the rest of the games that I own that have that team-based tag. So I've gone through and done this with quite a few games. I'll try to find one of the more interesting lists. So Best Zombies Steam game that has 14 on the ladder. So there you've got the statistics again. And then the leaderboard rankings for the top 14 games. And I've got a ELO number there, which is their score, and given it a tier as a kind of like a summary of where they really stand relative to other games. So tier lists are something that's become quite popular in gaming culture, I would say, is a relatively new way of rating things that has become quite popular in coming years. I'll try and find a tier list as an example. I Google something. Okay. Just tier list games, just as an example to show everyone. See if I can find one with like A, B, C, D, and an S. Yeah, something like this. So this is quite a popular way to rate things these days, where S tier is considered things that are particularly outstanding. And then A, B, C, D, E is kind of similar to school, or at least how I used to get graded in school back in the day. A being the best, and then F is just like total fail. So I've used that system as well, but it's all kind of determined algorithmically and statistically. So I standardize the ELOs and essentially find the percentile where that ELO sits, working out the average and the standard deviation, and then calculating a z-score. And then that z-score will tell me what percentile it sits at. And I think I put S tier is like the top 5%, being particularly outstanding. And then again, there's my completed statistics. And this ladder I've gone through and I've seeded every single game that I have. So slowly building up a leaderboard to determine my own personal rankings for all the games that I have based on, I guess, how I feel, and determining it algorithmically by putting games against each other, facing them off. So I'm never actually giving a game a rating myself. It's all determined algorithmically. Like we've got this one, best great soundtrack game. And at the top, we've got Ori and the Blind Forest. If you're a gamer or you're interested in music, the soundtrack on these two are essentially the same games here at the top. The soundtrack of these two games is incredible. It's recorded with a full orchestra, and just look it up on Spotify. It's just fantastic music. And then I've got all the games that they're rated 1 to 11 with their different ratings there. So this one gets an F because it's in the lowest, I think it's like the lowest 5 percentile of the average list of ELOs for that particular category.
Yeah, super cool.
So we can look up Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Okay, the definitive edition. So this will show the game, the particular game and what leaderboards it's ranked on. So you can see that one it's been ranked 7 times and is a S tier game for the Great Soundtrack Steam game. And there you can see they've got the avatar and a preview image. So those images, again, Steam has the URL in the REST response. So I just then use that to download the image and put it in ServiceNow. And this is just showing a record in ServiceNow. I guess the last, I've also got kind of a profile summary page that just sort of shows me wraps up all my completion statistics, all the leaderboards I've got games on for every single possible leaderboard that exists in the system. So there's a lot of them that don't have any games rated, but there's all kinds of user tags in Steam that shows all the different things in here. And then all my games that haven't been seeded yet, so for which ladder. So we've got like the best 4X Steam game. So this Age of Wonders, if I rank this game one more time, it's going to become seeded on the best 4X Steam game ladder. So go back to my leaderboards. I'll just go back to my search. 4X ServiceNow search, I think, doesn't do 2 characters. Oh yes, it does. Best 4X Steam game. So we can see there's not anything actually ranked there at the moment, but all these 4 games have been matched 3 times. So if all I need to do is Age of Wonders, and that will seed 2 games on the ladder. So just let this one load. Okay, so it couldn't find any matches because I've already matched every game on that ladder against each other, but there weren't enough games to rank any given game 4 times. So I'm not able to seed that one. So it's just given me a different ladder to use instead. So best fantasy Steam game. And whenever it runs out of games to rank, it will just move you to the next most relevant things to rank against each other. So Age of Wonders is another game that I've played a lot. So it's come up with ranking these 2 together to decide which one is better. And if I can't decide, I can always go skip. And if I feel like doing something completely random, I've got rank random games here, which is going to find something completely random. Sometimes it doesn't find anything and it just gives an error. When it does that, you can just refresh it. Because it's random, you'll pick a better random. There's always a chance that it randomly picks something that there's nothing to rate for. So now it's picked randomly best action Steam game, and it's put Half-Life 2 and Jedi Survivor against each other. So that's pretty much most of the functionality. I can come back to the main page, and here I've just got listed the games that are either the top of their leaderboard or are S tier, or leaderboards that have at least 2 games ranked. So you can see here we've got my top games in total for all the different tags we've got here: zombie Steam game, third person shooter, PUBG Battlegrounds, best strategy game, best pixel graphics, aliens, memes, team-based, great soundtrack, multiplayer, first-person shooter, and then we've got some other ones on the second page as well, like best cyberpunk Steam game. There's all kinds of user tags on Steam. Like there's even a meme tag. There's pretty much everything you can think of. Like if you like platform games, platformers, for example, you've got puzzle platformer, 2D platformer, 3D platformer, has all different sort of platformer games that you can have on Steam. And I don't have every game that's on the Steam library. I just have I've just loaded in the games that I own and that my friends own to beef out the database a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works, at least in the portal. But there's a lot of cool things happening as well behind the scenes that I can go into. If do you have any questions in particular, Carlos? Otherwise, I can just go into ServiceNow and show you how some of this stuff works behind the scenes.
Oh, sure. And all these integration to pull the info, you are using like a API engine to using REST API to connect with the Steam APIs and pull the data, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I did use, this is all on my PDI, so I absolutely did use Application Engine Studio to build out some of the tables and also start building out some of the workflows and things like that. So I'll jump into Workflow Studio and I'll just sort of go back to the very start. The important thing is to have the games into ServiceNow, because nothing's possible without the games being in ServiceNow. So we won't worry about that one for now. So I'll start kind of at the highest level, I guess. I'll find the subflow there it all starts from. So import opponents from Steam library. So an opponent is essentially a game. I've changed my mind a couple times as I've been building this to whether I wanted to. Initially, I was calling them opponents, and now I like to prefer to call them competitors, because opponents sort of has negative connotations to it. So this is the key flow that does all the games loading. So there's a record called a judge integration record, where the judge is like the user that's doing the judgment of the two different games. So that's just a record in ServiceNow that holds the API key. So maybe I'll go into the backend and just show that record. So yeah, now this looks a lot like ServiceNow, doesn't it? It's quite amazing what you can build with ServiceNow if you have a little bit of imagination.
Yes.
So I've got all the profiles of all my friends that I've been able to get. So my own one, for example, my gaming tag is Pablo. So my judge record has a judge integration. So that key there, that's my 17-digit Steam ID. And that's the default algorithm that is used for matching games. I created two algorithms, like a best closest match and a worst closest match. So that next worst match will give you the most relevant game versus the least relevant game. And then closest match will give you the two most relevant games. What I was showing you was the next closest match. I wanted it to experiment with the different ways of serving opponents to see which sort of gave the best experience. And the feedback that I have been getting from my friends has been that the next closest match is the most interesting. What gives you the most interesting matches first keeps people engaged, keeps them interested. So that's my key. So it's essentially just loading that record in. Just got a bit of a try catch. So if get my Steam games, so that will firstly just get all the games that I own. So get Steam games will just go into this action. And it's all actually pretty simple with Steam's API. Just need a Steam key and a Steam profile. So the Steam key is my API key, and Steam ID is just the Steam ID of the user. And then I just specify the format and a little parameter that tells it to get all played free games, because without this it doesn't get you free games. Like Counter-Strike and Dota are free games, so those wouldn't be loaded otherwise. And then there's just a script, so leveraging some of the power of ES6 to use some functions that aren't ordinarily available, like filter and map and sort, which lets you manipulate JSON objects really easily. So I'm excluding anything that's been played less than 12 hours, but I'm also including things that have a playtime of 0. That was because for some of my friends' Steam profiles, there's a setting in your Steam profile that if you don't tick, it doesn't give what your Steam playtime is. So everything is set to 0. So I just put it as over 2 hours or 0. And then like this just maps it to a object. So .map. So it gets game.appid from the games, which is just the response, and the wait and playtime forever. And then it just does a descending sort and then outputs it as a output variable. So like we can just test this. This is my profile. This is my Steam key. I can run it. And then see here, resource path, response body, and rendered HTML or code. Yeah, this makes it look a little bit better. So it's just giving me like the app IDs and the playtime. But it's not giving me any actual information, any sort of real detail about the game, just the app IDs and the playtime for those. So that's not enough, but that will tell me everything that's in my library at least to start with. So I can come back to here. So just in case one of the games fails, or if the API call fails for any reason, if it does fail, it will just update my record saying that I'm not able to retrieve the games for this particular profile, cannot get games. And then for each of the games, which is put on like a JSON object, it will just loop through. And this is the subflow that will actually get the game itself. So another subflow, and this will be an action. So we'll try and get the game. And again, if it can't get the game, it will just kind of end the flow quietly. Otherwise, it will just keep on going. So we'll look at the import Steam game. So this one, again, it's another REST call. This one didn't require an API key. It's just app details. App details equals the app ID. And then I've just got a script here to pull out the game information from the payload and also ignore it if it's not a game, because the Steam library does actually store some non-games. So I didn't want those being in the system. So that's where it will just throw an error and that will get picked up by the try catch in the previous subflow. Then we've got JSON parser step. So this is really cool. If you haven't used the JSON parser step, you basically just put in a example payload and then it sort of creates a custom object based on what's in that. So all the games always call response comes back with something like this. So you've got like, there's lots of things I'm not using. There's categories, genres, screenshots. Oh, I'm using one of the screenshots. Release date is one of the things I am using. So I don't need all of this information in there. I just need some of it. So that puts it into a nice JSON object, and then you can map it to the different fields in my Steam game record. You just tick the fields that determine uniqueness, which have got correlation ID and data source, and then so I'm not bringing much in at all, just description, name, avatar URL, website, preview image, and release. So that's doing that for the Steam game in question. And then, so that's just create opponent. So this is where we want to be. So it's coming through here just with each individual game. So it's looping through that here. As you see, there's a for each loop. So it's just looping through the object. Here, so then it's creating the for each Steam game. So this top bit here, and there's also a second call as well. So Steam don't expose their user tags via API, but someone else has their own API to get the user tags. So that's on steamspy.com. So different API requests to get a particular game's Steam tags, and then I just loop through all of them and sort them by the number. Well, I'll do another test just so you guys can see what's there. So like here's an example of what comes back from I think this was Name Dwarf. Can't remember which game this was for, but it just gives you a list of tags and the number of times like the Steam community has given or applied that tag to the game, and then I use all that information in my application to determine which tags are most relevant for which games when it does when the algorithm decides what game you should get to rate. And then this is just kind of it going through and creating all the records in ServiceNow. So there's the user tags. When I first built this app, I called them criterion records. Tried to keep the names generic. So this ranking system could apply to things outside of ServiceNow. So this just goes through, checks if there's a existing criterion record. If there isn't, it will create one, and then the opponent criterion record is kind of like the many-to-many table that joins the game with the tags. Then it will come through here and create or update an opponent criterion record. Then it needs to create a new leaderboard if a leaderboard doesn't already exist for that new criteria. And then it just will add that game to that new leaderboard, and that just outputs that. It kind of goes through and loops through all your games and does that. So that's the process of loading all the games in. I'll just show as well the actual information that we get back about. So this was the getting all the games that you own. Create opponent import Steam game tags. Just find this one again, import Steam game opponent. Just show some of the information. So 730, I think that was Counter-Strike. So go through the steps, look at the rest. Response body. This was Counter-Strike 2. So that you can see it's just a big old JSON here. So it's very unusual, the form factor that Steam uses. They return the ID, and then within that they've got success as true, and then within that they've got the data, and then that's got the good stuff that I actually want. So there's a fair bit of information there about the game that you can see. I think, yeah, that's showing everything. It kind of gets a bit clumped up there in the end, but yeah, there's a good deal of information in there to pass through. It essentially just ends up as a record in my system It just has a few details in it. So, where it get that's pretty much bringing the data in, which is only half of the story, really. But you can see it's not really that complicated, and it's mostly there's a little bit of code to kind of sort through the data once I've got it, but it's mostly done through Flow Designer and Integration Hub. At least the integration component of it, it does get a little bit more complicated than that behind the scenes. But in terms of just getting the data, it's not difficult, and it's good practice to keep your skills fresh.
Yeah, super cool. But you needed to spend some time to think about the database infrastructure to store the data you needed it to use
Yes.
within the portal, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's true. There's definitely a lot of thought around the design of how all the tables will sit together. I'll just so I can go behind the scenes. And I've mapped most of them out. So I think this is probably, you guys can tell me if you have the same thing as you're developing stuff. Quite often I change my mind as how I want to name something as I go through the process. So as I was saying, I started off calling them opponents, and then I've decided that I wanted to call them competitors instead. So you can see competitors. This is just every single game that exists in the system. So I've managed to pull in 1,272 games into the system. But I also need a table that allocates ownership to games. So there's competitors, and then user competitors will just, it's kind of like it's more than just a many-to-many table, I guess, because it also contains the data about who owns what game and what their playtime is and all that sort of thing. So there's an instance of Dota 2 for each profile or each person that owns Dota 2. And same with all the games you see here. So that's two tables already. And then the criterion for each game, that's more like a many-to-many table. So you can see like the game and all the different criterion they have. And then the weight that each criterion has. This was the number of times that the tag was applied to that game in Steam, and then a rank as to just what is the most relevant to the least relevant. So say I go Dota 2 again. And we group it there by rank. You can see free to play is the most applied tag, and then the least applied tag there. At the bottom is simulation. So those are kind of like the free tables for the competitors. And then there's the leaderboards. And then each leaderboard has a ranking. So there's leaderboard and then leaderboard rankings. So that's like 13,000 records in total. So every ladder that has a game that can be ranked has a record. So lots and lots of records going on there. And of course, the matchups between the two different games, they're all records in ServiceNow that have a status or a state, whether they're being completed or they haven't been completed. And there's also that skipped option as well, so you can see which ones have been. Looks like none of them in the system have been skipped. But I'll just go rank random games and show you some of the data behind the scenes here. I'll just try again. So this best fast-paced theme game here. So I'll just refresh this. And it's just generating a record in ServiceNow and showing it to you on the form. So there we've got the best fast-paced Steam game. And you can kind of see it's pretty much the same thing here. It's just displaying this information, but displaying it in Service Portal. And then as well, I've also generated data for the potential matches. So it's kind of showing you behind the scenes, call it a opponent selection instance. So this showed it. The first thing it does essentially is it picks an opponent and then it picks a criteria. So for fast-paced and the game Deathmatch Classic, it then tries to find a appropriate match. So this was a fairly more of a niche user tag, so there's not as many games. But it looks at what's called age, which is just how many times the game has been rated previously against this leaderboard, the relevance of the criteria, the eligibility of the record, which is really just the relevance based on the playtime, the difference of elo between the games in here and the primary opponent, which is Deathmatch Classic. On cooldown is just has it been rated previously in the past 30 days, and is it relevant? So there's a threshold. So this is all based on the algorithm, which is also a record in the system. So the algorithm just has weightings that it applies to each of the different things: age, opponent, elo difference, criterion, how it ranks it. So it's a lowest ranked value is considering the most relevant, and there's a relevancy threshold there. So if anything has a score of greater than 1,500, it's deemed to be not relevant and it's ignored, depending on the context of how you entered the ranking or the face-off. So because so that had Counter-Strike 2 was the top match, so it selected that one to match against. So let's just go skip this time. While it's doing that, you can go back to the instances. We can see a new one here: Team Fortress, Counter-Strike 2. Team Fortress, Counter-Strike 2. Open this one up. And then we can see again, there was only one option, which was Counter-Strike 2, because the rest were deemed too irrelevant because I have not much playtime against these. So the idea being, because I haven't played them, I don't really know much about these two games. So let's just say fast-paced Steam game. Ooh, they're both pretty fast-paced, but we'll go Counter-Strike 2. And now it should run out of matches. Oh no, there's still Half-Life Deathmatch Source and Counter-Strike 2. Okay, the filter relevant only flag wasn't on, so it's still going to show me results that aren't relevant. So we'll kind of keep going through that until I've exhausted it. So let's just do number 2 again. So everything is data behind the scenes. So while that's doing that, I've got a subflow for this one as well. So I think this is get opponent selection ranking that does the sorting out of getting all the opponents. So there are a few inputs there. So at this stage, you've got a primary opponent and a leaderboard. So it creates the selection instance. It finds all of your My Competitors records, which is the games that you own. Then it looks up the leaderboard ranking records for that particular leaderboard and opponent. That's just used to get the elo of the primary opponent, and then it just loops through every potential opponent, checks that it has the criteria for that leaderboard, and if it does have that criteria, there's lots of lookups going on here. Look up to get elo of the selected opponent. I'll look up here to get the number of times the game has been previously rated by the user. Then rank component selection. This is an action that runs some code. So this just is the algorithm that does the weighting, which is all based on the algorithm record. So I'll jump back here. Then based on whether it's relevant or not, based on the threshold, it will set relevancy to true or set it to false. If it's recent judgment, that's if it's on cooldown. If it's been rated against this game already, it will exclude it. And then if that game is not on cooldown, then it will sort of increment the match count and then create a selection ranking record. And then based on whether you had the algorithm was set to do highest value or lowest value winning, it will return the top match and the number of the top match, and then the bottom one is opponent selections and matches. And then once you've done the judgment as to which is the best game as well, it will update the face-off instance record with the outcome of who's won, and then we'll go and do all the creating of the updating the leaderboard ranking records, calculating what the new elo is, and then this one's got a little bit of code in it, the rank leaderboard action, but calculate new elo. I didn't know how to code this myself, so like a lot of people do these days, I just asked ChatGPT to generate a algorithm for calculating elo for me, and that's what it did. And I just had to update it a little bit to work with the action to handle the inputs and outputs. But this, like get expected score, update rating, calculate elo ratings, that was all created by ChatGPT. So if you know exactly what you want, ChatGPT is an amazing tool for that. Or even if you're doing something specific to ServiceNow, I guess you do have Now Assistant, Now Creator, you can use that as well. But it really does speed up a lot. Like this, probably, like if I wanted to make this myself, this probably would have taken quite a few hours of studying how the algorithm works and looking at the mathematical equation on Wikipedia and then working out how to code it, where I could just use ChatGPT to pretty much instantly give me that code. And the this one was a little more complicated, rank leaderboard action. This one is all in code. So that's just another script include that does a lot of the math around working out standard deviations and percentiles and stuff like that, which I mostly use ChatGPT for as well, as I am not particularly strong on math and statistics, even though I did a little bit at uni back in the day. That was a long time ago, and it's just easier to get ChatGPT to generate code for me for that. But ChatGPT can't write flows for me, of course, so I had to do all of that myself. So yeah, it's a lot of flows, some script includes, some integration hub, REST actions that all kind of come together to do all this stuff in ServiceNow. So my next project is, well, it's still going to be the same project, but the next thing I plan to do is to actually port this into a real web app outside of ServiceNow. So I was doing some experimentation on the weekends. I finally bit the bullet and bought a Chat GPT 4 subscription, but this actually blew my mind yesterday. Sometimes ChatGPT gives you code or gives you answers that are a little bit weird and unusual, but sometimes it absolutely blows you away, which it did this weekend. So, for example, I took one of my script includes that I wrote in ServiceNow, which I was mostly generated from ChatGPT in the first place, that included glide record lookups. And then I said, I'll give you the prompt at the top, was convert the following ServiceNow server-side script include into code for Node.js. And it actually converted the glide record API into MySQL Node.js API, and included like the requires, database connection setups, and then where I had the glide record call, it converted it into an SQL, which just blew my mind, including the asynchronous code to get the results, map them into an object, and all the async functions and the like exports. Like, it just absolutely blew my mind that it was able to do that. So that's kind of the next project, is to actually build this into a website outside of ServiceNow. But ServiceNow is what I'm familiar with, and it was really good to build up a proof of concept, because you've already got a workflow engine behind you. You've already got the service portal, so it was a good way to experiment with the idea first and kind of work out the design of how I wanted it to work. And yeah, the next thing will be to take it back out of ServiceNow, which will be quite interesting. But I just couldn't believe that it turned a glide record function, like a function that uses glide record, into SQL, including the setup. Like, it just blew my mind that it was able to do that. I mean, wow, it's come a long way, hasn't it?
This is amazing. So the plan is like to hire a hosting web server, like a Linux and a MySQL database, and put everything in there to see if these ChatGPT algorithms would work without ServiceNow, right?
Yep, that's it. And I was even experimenting with some things as well, like generating images for the tags and descriptions as well. So like, I was playing around with like create an image for Steam game user tag 2.5D platformer, and then like came up with something like that. And also I gave it my schema in ServiceNow. Like, I just went to the sys dictionary table and just gave it, say, like leaderboard ranking. It doesn't look like much there, but I just went and exported some of the dictionary stuff into CSV, and then it gave me the code for recreating that table using SQL. And then I played around with it a bit more and said that some of these, if the like internal type is reference, then it's going to be a foreign key of a table in the table name found in the reference column. And then it even included the SQL to set it up as a foreign key. It's just like absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah, for sure. No, just the fact that you used ChatGPT to calculate and to generate these statistical formulas and functions and everything, it is pretty amazing, pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I graduated from uni in 2010, and I remember in my first year we did things like we learned how to normalize data on a bell curve and calculating z-score. But I don't remember any of the specifics around how to actually do it. But ChatGPT was able just to generate the code for me that did it, so it was quite amazing. So if you know exactly what you want and you've got like a good design mindset, I guess me being more these days in the architect space, and having 14 years of ServiceNow experience, I've got a pretty good design mind. ChatGPT kind of becomes like your probably, I wouldn't say a senior developer, but you're like maybe your mid developer. As long as you know what you want and how to ask the question, you can get a lot of information. So you can become a team of people on your own as a single person. So I think that's the way the future's headed. It might be a little bit scary if you're a emerging developer. I don't think we're quite there that it's going to actually affect employment of junior developers yet. But I think in the future, we will probably see organizations won't need as many junior developers. And a lot of the skill and demand is going to come from people that know how to design things well. Until, of course, the AI can design things for us as well, which it can do to some degree as well. I was playing around with generating pages as well in React, and it was pretty good at doing that as well, like creating
Sounds
components
great.
in React and all that sort of thing. So yeah, this is my side project that is taking up a lot of my time, but I really enjoy doing it. So it doesn't seem like a chore. It's something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And please keep us posted about the new things that you are going to do, like experimenting to use this publishing on a external web server like a Linux, or using AI in the near future. Let's see.
Yeah, so yeah, the plan is to use React as a front end, and then there's I'm still very new to this space because I've kind of ignored web develop. The last 14 years, I've basically ignored everything that's not ServiceNow. So I've fallen well behind with the web technologies that are out there at the moment. Essentially, she's going to use React as the front end, Node.js as the server side. And what's really good is Node.js server side is JavaScript. It's very similar to how we build script includes in ServiceNow. So it's not really a foreign concept. I can read the code it's not too different. As you can see, even ChatGPT can easily convert any code that you write in ServiceNow into SQL statements, and using the syntax that uses pretty easily. And then there's you use Axios lets React call Node.js, which is just like your API on the server. And then Express is another piece of technology that ties it all together as well. So it's going to be a fun journey, and I do plan to blog it as I go along, but there's probably going to be a bit of a delay between where I'm actually up to and where I blog, because both those things take a lot of time to do.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of lag. So I've got one post up about how I did the REST stuff that you saw today, and I'll continue posting some of the other sort of challenges I had, because there were a lot of funky database lookups that I had to do, lots of joins, lots of glide aggregates, and had a few challenges around that. So my next blog is probably going to be, there's lots of things I need to blog about, because I also am working on a blog on the Now Assist creator AI stuff. So I've got a lot of stuff planned, a lot of content planned.
Great report. And thank you very much for sharing everything in this amazing project with us. Yes, and let me put here your contacts. You have the famous blog, the ServiceNow Nerd.
Yep, famous. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will put here your LinkedIn for contact. And thank you very much for sharing.
No worries. Thanks for hosting me.
Yeah. Well, and guys, thank you very much for joining us today, and see you next time. Bye-bye.